Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hey, everybody.
Ruben Bressler.
What is up? Ready to go.
Everything is up. We are here. We are back. We had a week off. Ruben got to hang out with the fam.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I went up to Sequoia. We didn't actually get to see the big trees because when we got there, it hit freezing and there was black ice on the roads and we couldn't drive, which was too bad. But we had a nice job camping. We drove around Central California a little bit. So it was nice to see my folks since I won't see them because I'm not flying home for Thanksgiving or Christmas this year. But it was nice to see.
Very nice. We also began with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent in letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Eldrazi cards. Ruben?
Well, we had 2 weeks to look over things, and while 2 is an even number, Ryan Murphy at Murph Classics does point out, how could you miss the epitome of weird for the Eldrazi? I know it didn't see tournament play, but it was the best design to demonstrate how the Eldrazi don't play by the rules of the universe. I can't even. Actually, Void Winnower, you can't even.
Yeah, for those who don't know, this was a Mythic from Battle for Zendikar. It's 9 mana for an 11/9. Notice I've not said anything even so far.
Yeah, of course.
It's a Mythic Eldrazi. It says your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana cost, and 0, as we should know, is even. Your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. And I think
pretty sure competitive play.
No, not a bit.
I know
I think I've seen it. I think I've seen it as like an oath target or some
I've seen
other
it as a reanimator target.
Yeah.
It saw a little bit of play in a God Pharaoh's gift deck.
Sure.
Apparently.
Why not?
Something in red-green ramp, apparently, is a thing to go do.
Why not?
Some ramp decks.
Yeah, I think that every single thing on the entire card is an even number.
Or is an odd number.
Or an odd number, sorry.
Right.
Odd number.
Like the number of letters in the word of the card.
In
and
the text box.
Like,
it is 17 out of 174 in the set. I mean, I think everything is supposed to be odd. On this card.
That's cool.
And it is.
Yeah, it's very sweet. And it's a really cool design. And this was the stuff that, like, the X mana, XX, with counters or whatever, that's not an Eldrazi. It doesn't show me anything. That doesn't, like, this to me communicates strangeness.
It's weird. Yeah.
It's
otherworldly.
Yes.
This is like Geiger-esque.
Yeah.
Lovecraftian, crazy, weird, bizarre, unearthly stuff. This is an Eldrazi.
Right. I didn't like Eldrazi, like coming back to Eldrazi on Zendikar or whatever, but at least I could appreciate these Eldrazi where it's like, wow, this is a really cool design to show like what Eldrazi could be beyond what you already knew. But that said, we do appreciate thanks much to Ryan Murphy for being a part of the show. Please contact Aeron on social media before she blocks you on all of them.
Blocked 4 people today so far.
Wow.
34,000 strong.
This one was through Twitter. So you could, even if Aeron blocks you, I suppose you could message Magic Mike's cast.
To be fair, I have blocked some of the community's finest members, like Shivam, Jay. Wow. Yeah. And look at them now. And look at, dare I say.
They don't even need you.
Jay just wrote a book.
Right.
Shivam was on limited resource. Dare I say.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that Campbell bump. To
there
get
we go.
Popular, you got to get
blocked. It's that block bump. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate.
I was known for my block bump when I was playing basketball in college.
Ruben Bumpslayer.
So if you got a block bump, I want to see your doctor, get that checked out.
Yeah.
I can tell you. But we're talking about Commander Legends cards. The new set is coming out on Friday. And my God, this set was over the top is a way to think of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. They definitely. So what I appreciate about Commander Legends is that we've had a lot of these sets that are designed for older formats, sets that aren't designed for standard, right? And you've had the Commander decks, which made sense.
Which worked.
Which were fine, but they seemed a little not exactly what people wanted because they give you an entire deck. And part of the joy of Commander is creating your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got things like Modern Horizons and the remastered kind of stuff, and you think, this is good, but this is good for a competitive one-on-one, starting at 20 life. Maybe not everything's great for Commander. Commander Legends they leaned into the weird. They leaned into the what makes the format unique.
Mm-hmm.
They leaned into having fun in different ways. Like a lot of the different cards have many different avenues that you can explore with them. I really appreciate that they did that with Commander Legends.
I feel like one of the things that Wizards, just really, really modern design, like super, like the last 5 years of design, and Arena, I think, is, sort of encroached in this a lot, which is modal stuff. Things have options. They have, alternate costs. They have different modes. They have modes that you get all the modes if you do a certain thing. Like, those options are showing up all over the place these days, and it's all over the set.
Yeah.
But let's get started here with our number 10. Aeron, what you got?
So one of the nice things about this set is it has a lot of gifts or toys for people who play monocolored decks or who don't play, the shards or the wedges or the multicolored commanders. And this is one of those neat toys that I'm really excited to play with and looks innocent enough, but I think is actually really quite good. My number 10 is War Room. So War Room is a land. You can tap it to add a wingding. It's a rare. You can also pay 3 colorless and tap it to pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity to draw a card. So if you're playing a monocolored commander, that's 3 colors and 1 life to draw a card. I mean, that's not bad, especially in colors that lack card draw. If you're playing, I was going to say green, but green's getting quite a bit of card draw lately. But, particularly in mono white, mono white is always looking for weird ways to draw cards. And so if you don't want to play Mind's Eye, or if you don't want to play, I think there was like an Endless Atlas or something out. There's another card I'm thinking of.
There's a bunch of artifacts that do it.
Yeah, but this is also just something that's a land and just another way to get the job done, and really beautiful art too.
Yeah, the artwork looks fantastic.
I mean, this is just an underworld connections in a monocolored deck, and much less if you're playing, Karn Brawl or whatever it would be that you're playing in Commander. One of the big Eldrazi like Kozilek. This card's great, and it reminds me, of course, of the Doctor Strangelove line. There's no fighting here. This is the War Room.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, this card in and of itself is it's a sweet sort of thing you can do with your mana at the end of their turn. Yeah. You start at 40 life, right? Like,
exactly.
You got life to spare, you'll be all right.
Probably not playing this in Chromat, but if you're playing this in a 2-color, I'm happy to play this in a 2-color deck.
Heck yeah. 2 life, draw a card. Okay, sure.
Yeah, great.
Ruben, what's number 10?
My number 10 and my number 9 are both higher on someone else's list.
Well. I guess I get to jump right into my number 10. My double higher happens later. Don't worry. We'll get to it. For my number 10, this is a set that gave Wizards the opportunity to create cards that had only been hinted at, had been talked about, had been sort of referenced in many ways. And in many ways, Wizards had taken something that either sort of like a weird joke or just like this weird thing that somebody decided to do and just kind of just ran with it. Because Larry Niven was in Magic, his name was backward as Navinderal's disc because he came up with the term mana. Like, that's where he got it from. So it was like an in joke. It's funny. It's the author's name backwards. You're never going to have a way to a legendary who? Navinderal Urborg Tyrant shows up. And now we have a legendary creature behind the guy of the disc, which is awesome. So Navinderal Urborg Tyrant is a black, blue, a white, and 3 generic mana. So 6 mana for a 3/6 rare legendary zombie wizard. It has hexproof from artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. And when it enters the battlefield, you create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token for each creature that died this turn. And when it dies, you may pay 1 generic mana. And when you do, you destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments.
Now, I think that this goes infinite under certain circumstances with Phyrexian Altar. I believe if enough creatures die...
Something that triggers it back in or whatever.
Well, I mean, because it keeps creating more zombies, and the zombies count towards itself, if some number of zombies die, and then you sacrifice... And then you play Navinderal, make a bunch of zombies, sacrifice all the zombies, sacrifice the Navinderal, play it again, sacrifice, play it again, sacrifice, and it counts all those zombie triggers over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's a weird card.
It's a weird card, but
super and that's cool. Like the only use I could think of with this card. But yeah, it's super cool. Ignores the new text of all non-land permanents to let your planeswalker stick around, which is also super cool.
Yeah, kept the original disc text and stuff, which is great.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype around this commander. I have to say, at least from the people I follow, is no one seems to quite know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I follow Rachel Weeks, who I love, and her in particular was just like, I tried it, and am I doing it wrong? And so I'm anxious to see if people are going to keep it, if there really is something there, or if it's just going to kind of, fizzle out and just be okay.
It looks like, according to EDH Rec, things like Rings of Brighthearth to get multiple triggers, things like Aristocrat stuff with Zulaport Cutthroat and Viscera Seer to really get that count up so you get a lot of tokens when he enters the battlefield, stuff like that. But for me, it's taking this like random, I swear to God, it's an in-joke from Alpha.
It is.
All the way to
it's
the
an Easter egg from Alpha that they brought all the way back.
And it appeals to everybody. If you are one of the veteran fans who know who that is, you're going to be interested in this card. And if you don't know who Larry Nevin is, you still are going to see a really sweet card and want to build it. So that's cool.
Absolutely. Let's move here to number 9. Aaron, what you got?
My number 9 is also a character that we had only heard about in hushed whispers. We knew on Innistrad that there was a family of angels. We knew that there was Bruna, we knew that there was Gisela, we knew that there was Sigarda, and we had heard that there was a 4th sister, but no one ever knew anything about her. We wondered if she was going to make an appearance in, the Innistrad blocks. She never did. But we finally get to meet the 4th sister who Avacyn took out because she got caught making a deal with a demon. And I can't wait to play with her. My number 9 is Liessa, Shroud of Dusk. So Liessa is 2 colorless, 2 white, and a black. She's a legendary creature angel, 5/5 with flying and lifelink. So you'll take that for 5. And then rather than pay 2 colorless for each previous time you have cast her from the command zone, you pay 2 life that many times instead. So that's a neat way to get around the commander tax. And then whenever a player casts a spell, that's including you, they lose 2 life. So really neat kind of stacks commander. Plays really well with cards like Comball. I'm sure there's some other, white or black things you could do. You can play a lot of Sphere of Safety. You could play I think there's the Aura of Silence where your commanders cost more. And so this could be really, really fun. I have not had an Orzhov commander for quite some time, and this might just be the one.
Yeah.
When I saw this card, the first card I thought of was Font of Agonies.
Okay.
Because you have to pay life instead of the commander cost, and so you just get those blood counters for free.
Very Orzhov, yeah.
Yeah, very Orzhov. Before I ever did the Broken Pact, I was considering doing an Innistrad campaign, and I was working with A.E. Marling on writing that. And our idea was to be about the Forbidden Angel, which we didn't know the name of the Forbidden Angel at the time, but we knew existed. Mm-hmm. And to finally see Liessa in print is delightful.
And she, I don't know much about D&D, but she really sounds like that character that is perfect for a campaign because you don't know much about her. They don't give you too much. And so you can really let your imagination run wild in terms of who is she and what did she do and what's her name. And that seems like a feast for you.
Exactly right. There's just enough skeleton to start building your own beast around it.
Exactly.
But now we have a little bit of an image and a little bit of some magic flavor, so there's even more to work off of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll take a 5-mana 5/5 with all upside, sweet ability, you get around the tax. It does a lot of stuff, checks a lot of boxes. For my number 9, when I was looking at the set, this is a card that didn't necessarily jump out at me, particularly when it was spoiled. I'm not even sure when it was spoiled. I just kind of missed it. But I was looking at the set and I was reading, oh my God. I was like, this card's amazing. I was like, this card's really? This card, for what they've been doing recently to blue-green, WotC? Really? Blue-green has gotten so many unbelievable tools the past couple years, between Growth Spiral and Uro or whatever, and Oko, obviously. But to come back with that and Commander Legends to be like, wham! Here's Mythic Essie, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. Goodness. Icy? AC? I'm not sure what that is. AESI. What is that supposed to be?
AC's fine.
AC hot.
Yeah, let me tell you. This thing is almost $20 right now. AC Tyrant of Gyre Strait is blue, green, and 4 generic mana for a 5/5 mythic legendary serpent. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Let me tell you, there's lots of Cultivate, lots of Harrow, lots of abilities.
Tatiova,
I mean,
Spiral,
seriously.
This is what is why?
Why?
Do we have this card?
Why?
I feel like we had this card already. You know what I mean?
You think,
like,
yeah.
I feel like I read this card and was like, I feel like a creature's already had this rules text. Turns out we don't.
It's interesting. So I recently built a Vanifar deck in EDH, or as I lovingly call her, Vanifair, because I didn't want to build a broken Vanifar deck. Right. And I went to Scryfall and just started looking up Simic cards. And there definitely is a moment where Simic gets good. Like, for a while there, Simic was crap. Like, when you go look at, like, Lorwyn, and when you look at, like, early Ravnica, you know, there's a lot of, like, janky counter stuff. But, like, I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but eventually you get to a point in Scryfall where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was only like 3 years ago.
The power level goes up
Simic
significantly and just doesn't stop. Like, we are not going back to that era where Simic was just okay. Yeah. Somebody out there decided that Simic needed to be where you needed to be, and
well, we had Tatiova, then that led right into Return to Ravnica, Guilds of Ravnica, whatever, with the Hydro Crisis.
And other people have noticed. I know Joey Schultz from EDH Rec, he loves to talk about how Simic has just become like, you know, land draw a card. And even he brought up the new Azuri, where he was like, what about this is Simic? Right. Like, I don't understand. And so Simic seems to be going through a bit of an identity crisis that people seem to enjoy. But I think really savvy players are just like, what about this is
This is just one of those, like, really? You know, my rampant growth draws me a card too? Okay, fine, I guess. Yeah. You know, sure, this card is so sweet, though. Let's move over to number 8. Ruben, what you got?
I am finally on the board.
Yeah.
And I get to talk about a card. I get to talk about a creature. I get to talk about a character that we've known about since Ice Age. And it was a long time ago on one of the most indelible creatures of all time that we first had a flavor text written by or attributed to a character that we finally got in Time Spiral. But it took until this year, until this set, to get Hans Eriksson onto a Magic card. Hans Eriksson is 2 colorless red-green for a legendary creature human scout. He is a 1/4. When Hans Eriksson attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and attacking defending player or planeswalker they control. Otherwise, put that card in your hand. When you put a creature card onto the battlefield in this way, it fights Hans Eriksson. This, of course, hearkening back to Safi Eric's daughter, as opposed to Eric's son, which was a rare in Time Spiral, only ever printed that one time, which, of course, harkens back to Akhan's run, It's the Lurgoyf, Safi Eric's daughter, last words. Exciting to see a callback, this late, this indelible in Magic's history.
Yeah. And just instantly recognizable, you know, again, people who, you know, knew this card and knew those names were just like, oh my God. And, you know, beautiful art by Ryan Pancoast, you know, Saffron Olive, CVM, one of them needs to cosplay this because this was perfect. And just the flavor text of, you know, nothing could ruin such a fine day, Safi. And then, you know, you see what appears to be Safi in the background just being like, like
Hans run.
It's so good. It's so
good. Which, of course, is also an unglued card.
Yeah.
Hans run. It's and then you put a creature into play, which is super cool too.
Yeah, so this goes and finds creatures, and it fights the creature because it doesn't really see it coming, right? Which is the thing. Super duper sweet. I love the flavor of this one. Aeron, what's number 8?
My number 8 is a card that another character that we had only heard of, I think, once in the game's history, because it had a card named after it. I saw this really late one night. I think it was a Saturday night. I had stayed up doing something. Oh yeah, there we go. I was up late watching a movie and sleeving a deck, and then the movie ended, and I went to bed, and I did my nightly doom scrolling before bed, and I saw this card, and I was like, oh my goodness, oh my God, and I knew that I needed it in my life, and and my boyfriend is actually building a deck with this, and I think his name is Cedar Jabari. He's looking to do a Cedar deck with this, and I'm really excited. My number 8 is Tormod the Desecrator. So Tormod is 3 colorless and a black. It's a legendary creature zombie wizard with 4 power and 2 toughness. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token, and it has partner. So this is really cool. If you're playing Mildrotha, this is a really great, general to your commander. I think that's the term for that. And so if you're playing She-Ray, if you're playing Conrad, if you're playing Mildrotha, this just sort of fits in naturally naturally with that. It's not per card. I think it's like per event. So like you can't you can't exile your whole graveyard and get a whole bunch of 2/2s. I think it's just one for that. But this is known for Tormod's Crypt, and Tormod's Crypt actually plays well with Tormod, and so this is a really cute card that you can definitely have a lot of fun with, and I'm really excited to see how my boyfriend just breaks this in half.
I mean, Withered Wretch, for one generic mana, you exile target card from a graveyard. So one mana, make a 2/2 just as much as you want.
So anytime it leaves the graveyard,
right.
you are able to make the 2/2. And doing it one at a time is the way to do it. So Scavenging Ooze, Withered Wretch, that's
or
one
flashback spells, for example.
Flashback is another great one. Forever Young. It leaves the graveyard. All of the Sir Conrad interactions are exactly the same with Tormod. So this is a very exciting card. You also get to play with Desecrated Tomb and get bats in addition to your zombies. I mean, 2 for the price of 1. What could be better?
Hey-o.
And so even if you don't want Aeron, I understand that we don't want Tormod's Crypt in our against us when we are Tormod usually, or when we're Aaron Campbell, let's be honest. But we can also do things like, Gaia's Blessing, shuffle them back in. We can raise dead, do all that cool stuff.
This is really cool for the power level of an uncommon commander.
There's some really strong uncommons in this set where it's like, that's an uncommon. Okay.
That's a serious for real.
A lot of the uncommon partners are super cool.
But I think it had to be just because of being a draft set where it's like, you have to have good uncommons. Otherwise.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, my card is not uncommon. It is mythic. Ooh,
oh, no.
I love me a good mythic, let me tell you.
Mythic with 2 C's.
So, C. Yeah. Big one. Well, it's definitely a mythic with 2 C's because it's 7 mana. Wizards.
In this economy?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Wizards has just
paying
figured out that once you get to 7 to 9-ish mana, it just, whatever, it doesn't matter. And here we go into just like this word salad that cracks me up. I love the card, don't get me wrong. It just cracks me up how many unbelievable amount of keywords is on a Chroma Vision of Ixadore. It's 2 white, 5 generic mana for a 6/6 mythic legendary angel with flying, first strike, vigilance, and trample. But here we go. At the beginning of each combat, that's each combat, so you get those things that let you do more combats. Here we go. Until end of turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, protection, reach, trample, vigilance, and partner. And it has partner.
I might need to put this in my Cathrall deck.
Yeah, this card does everything.
I love the words "and so on."
And so on.
That is hilarious to me. I also like that a Chroma, I didn't know this, has knives for feet.
I didn't know that either.
She has feet knives.
Yeah.
Foot knives. Yep, foot knives.
I didn't notice that myself.
Also, +1/+1 if it has partner is interesting.
Yeah, to give the bonus and partner.
So it doesn't matter what you're partnering with a Chroma.
Right.
I like that they're still able to find they're still able to create fresh takes on characters we've seen before. We've talked about the Tormods that we've never seen, but we've seen a Chroma a couple times, and yet every time it still feels fresh and interesting.
Yeah, and always exciting. To me, this is one of like the penultimate angels they can go to whenever they need to make a really sick mythic angel. Here you go. Yeah. Make another Chroma.
Got that name recognition.
I know, right?
Brand.
It's very Lotus-y in that way, Moxie in that type of way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Moving to number 7, which begins my own drought. I'll see you guys again in number 5. Ruben, what you got for number 7?
One of those drought. Well, we're coming to the end of the year, so hopefully the rainy season picks back up. My number 7 is also a mythic. Mine does not have 2 C's because it only costs 1 mana, but boy does it pack a heck of a punch with Commander's Plate.
Oh, yeah.
Commander's Plate is 1 colorless mana for a mythic equipment artifact. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. Equip commander for 3 colorless and equip for 5 colorless on anything else. So if you're a mono, again, with these, they're powering up the monocolor commanders, which is super great. Yeah. So if I put this in my Atali deck, I've got everything that isn't pro-red. If I put this in my Ulamog deck, I get protection from every color. It's an Etch champion now. Yeah. Too bad for you. And all for the low cost of Trinket Mage goes and gets it. And equipped to the commander for 3? Yeah. Man, this thing packs a lot of a punch. And oh, by the way, commander damage still exists. So
This thing is pushed big time. This was one of the best-selling pre-selling single at Cool Stuff Inc. It's $12 for the regular. It's almost $44 for the extended art version. God knows what the foil is going to be worth. It goes in like every Commander deck, right? This is one of those, Wizards is a subsidiary of Hasbro, and they need to sell packs, and this is the stuff that makes you excited to open them, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just throw in everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing about this card is it's not an auto include, but there are certain archetypes of deck. Like it's not an auto include and it's not pigeonholed. It'll be in a ton of decks.
But it'll be in a ton of decks, right? It'll go in so many.
It reminds me of the new Blackblade sword, Blackblade Reforged, where it's like it's not an auto include, but yet it's still not being used as much as it should be. Where it's like, why aren't more people using the Blackblade? Like,
right. Anything that relies on commander damage, or doesn't rely, anything that can use
benefit
commander damage. This is going to be insane.
All right. Aeron, what's number 7?
My number 7 is a card that I am so excited to build around. And when you want creepy done right, you go to Vincent Pros. And he hit this one out of the park again. This card is so weird. It's a literal elf ball. My number 7 is Abomination of Lanawire. So Abomination is 1 colorless, a black and a green for an elf horror with vigilance and menace and 2 asterisk for the power and toughness. And it says the Abomination's power and toughness are each equal to the number of elves you control plus the number of elf cards in your graveyard. I love this. The art is terrifying. He posted some high resolution or high definition art of this a short time after it was previewed, but I would love to build like an elf aristocrat deck of just finding neat ways to either sacrifice your elves intentionally or you can just play Magic. This is another one of those cards that I don't think you have to go out of your way to really break. Like you can just play a fair game of Magic, and you're going to have elves in the graveyard, or you're going to have elves on the battlefield, and you'll be able to make a really big elf ball, and possibly just try to one-shot somebody. And so I'm really excited to see what people brew up with this. We got a lot of really good, both black and green elves in this set. If you go through Scryfall, so many elves to choose from, so many ways that you could build this, and I'm looking forward to building my own.
Yeah, people are already at it with like new cards like Elvish Doomsayer, which is interesting. The new Elvish Dreadlord, which is a thing.
Yes.
And of course the go-tos of Imperious Perfect and
Shaman of the Pack, Master, all that
Priest of Titania and yada yada.
Yes.
But the idea for 3 mana, this thing could get pretty huge. This one of those
gets enormous.
This feels like one of those weird, like it'll be a one of and a Legacy Elves deck that one time it just randomly comes out and crushes because it's like a 9/9 because they wrapped away all your elves and just play this thing.
It's Julian or Julian. He'll break this.
We had Drove of Elves, I want to say, in Lorwyn, which was 4 mana for like a Star Shroud.
Hexproof.
It's hexproof? Even better. That was only creatures in play. This is cheaper.
Close. Drove of Elves' power and toughness are each equal to the number of green permanents you control.
Green permanents. All right, well, whatever. I give up.
It's fine.
But
it's
more
whatever.
More importantly, this is the art that is on the ad insert in Commander Legends packs.
True.
And the tagline on the ad is "Make new friends that stick together forever."
I love it.
Adorable.
It's so weird. Yes.
That is fantastic. All right, let's move here to number 6. Ruben, what you got?
My number 6 is another of these uncommon partners, and I looked at the numbers on this card and was just like, this seems insanely good. Ixadore Wardwing Familiar.
Okay.
I feel like it has the potential to be extremely powerful in Commander. Colorless and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature bird with flying and partner, and spells your opponent's cast that target one or more commanders you control cost 3 colorless more to cast.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier about decks that rely on commander damage. Well, you know what's great is putting, lots of equipment on a thing that's tough to hit.
Right. Yeah. Turn 1 plate, turn 2 this, turn 3 equip plate.
Yeah.
Smash.
And just start going to town, and then your opponents can't target it for 10 more minutes. It's like it's pretty insane, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the value out of just 2 mana is strong.
Yeah. I mean, 3 toughness, 2 mana, evasion, and protects your other partner. I'm sure there's lots of ways to make this card really good.
Seems super dope. Aeron, what's number 6?
My number 6 is a card. So now we're getting into my next couple cards are going to be kind of obvious, and they're all going to have something in common. And so it's no secret that my Queen Marchesa deck, or my Queen, some people get really annoyed that I don't say Queen Marchesa, but I say Queen Marchesa. It's fine. My Queen Marchesa deck is one of my favorite commander decks, and we got a lot of neat Monarch toys in this set. And this is a card that I'm immediately going to be slotting in. I prefer to build my Marchesa deck as a pillow fort deck, where I just want to be left alone. I just want to build my castle and just don't make me get off this couch. And this plays very well with that style of deck. My number 6 is Ember Wild Captain. So Ember Wild Captain is 3 colorless and a red, is a Djinn pirate with 4 power and 2 toughness. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Whenever an opponent attacks you while you're the monarch, Ember Wild Captain deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand. So, you do want to run your Sphere of Safeties. You want to run your No Mercies and things like that. But the problem with a card like No Mercy is they have to actually hit you first in order for that to take effect. And so some opponents aren't scared of that, and they're willing to take that. But this does damage before it even comes at you. And so this is another thing that your opponents will have to think about when they decide that they want to come for you and try to steal your crown. It's going to be like, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to do that? And so I'm really excited for this card, and I think it's just one of the cards that's going to take my deck in a whole other direction.
Yeah, this is one of those, it works on a weird axis, right? Mm-hmm. It's not what you kind of normally see. Even on red cards, you don't see a lot of this.
Yeah. You get a Stormseeker effect that is playable in Commander, which is very powerful, because Commander is all about card flow. It's all about having more gas in the tank than your opponent. Right. And so you're very often going to be super late game, and your opponent's going to have 5, 6, 7 cards in hand. And if you want to, prevent them from, you don't even have to enter combat yourself with this card.
Right. It's almost like a Punisher card, but it doesn't suck.
Well, that's also too, because the thing I love the most about this is because my deck is such a pillow fort deck, I tend to run a lot of instants. So it's like Deflecting Palm, Swords to Plowshares, and so you get to attack, you're going to take that damage, and then it just won't even matter.
And then keep the Monarch.
And then kill it. And then we're good here? Exactly. You done? You took 6, right? You took 6.
Are you done?
In your combat step, you took 6, and I took nothing.
Exactly.
All right, moving on here to our number 5, which I have one. Yay! Now, earlier I was discussing the wonder of AC, EC, IC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. All right, that card is ridiculous.
It's Gyre
Strait?
Gyre
Strait. Okay, that's it.
GIF.
Fair enough.
No, it's actually GIF, but don't worry.
It is GIF. But regardless, the point is that card, it was very straightforward. You play the land, you draw the card, high five. I want to put all the lands in play right now. Do not pass go. Go in your library and get 10 of them and just slap them on a battlefield. Just windmill slam, reshape the earth. 9 mana, just do whatever you want, y'all.
9 mana, go get Maze's End. How about that?
9
mana, go get Valakut
and mountains.
Vesuva and mountains.
Yep.
Wow.
Reshape the Earth is 3 green, 6 generic mana for a mythic sorcery that says search your library for up to 10 land cards. That's just land cards. That's any land you like. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Well, they come into the battlefield tapped, so therefore this card's bad, right? Come on,
please.
I'm kidding.
This was my number 10.
Nice.
This card is absurd. There's a whole cycle of absurd 9 mana, 6 colorless, and then pip sorceries in this set. Mm-hmm. This one is the greenest, certainly. It fits the color pie the best. And it might be the best, because you're playing 40 lands in your deck anyway.
Yeah.
So you're going to go get a fourth of the lands in your deck, I guess. And you can win the game if you want to with Maze's End, with any number of... I'm sure you can win the game with 10 more lands in play.
Right.
Even if they come in tapped.
This definitely feels like the game ender, right? This is like, I'm going to go get Maze's End, y'all. Here's the pieces. Bye.
9, it better end the game.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Wizards has decided you hit 9 mana, it's just over. We're just going to do whatever words we want to put on a card. Sure.
Yeah.
Let's move on here to Ruben. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is higher on someone else's list, and I'm not surprised.
Aeron, what's number 5?
My number 5 is another card that is going straight into my Marchesa deck. This is just everything you want, especially if you're playing a Pillow Fort style of Marchesa. Not only do you get a board wipe, you get a board wipe and you get to put the crown back on your head as well, which should hopefully buy you a bit of peace and quiet. My number 5 is Feast of Succession. So Feast of Succession is 4 colorless and 2 black. It's a sorcery. All creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn, and you become the monarch. So this is perfect. You get rid of a lot of those tokens, a lot of those little creatures, and then you just have to really deal with maybe the big stuff that doesn't necessarily survive this, or that does survive this. But I want to talk about the art because, damn it, Seb McKinnon. How dare you? Like, you look at this art, and I love the details of this, where you have the insignia on the king's robe matches his soldiers. I didn't even notice the tiny black shrouded arm yoinking the crown off the king's head. You have the pig, which is obviously poisoned, all of the goblets. There's just so many layers to this. There's so much to unpack, and just unmistakably Seb. And just the minute I saw this, it was like, damn it.
You say to yourself, like, what makes these artists great? Okay, I want you to look at this card. What they told him was, everybody at the feast gets sick, even the king. And this is what he gave them.
Exactly.
That was where he took it. That's amazing. I was just, I mean, where do you go? Like,
the way that he paints a picture with his mind in his pictures, he tells an entire story just in a small, magic card size painting.
Right, and he added in that arm with the crown, grabbing the crown as if you're like he's being betrayed. Like, so much just as being, it's fantastic.
I mean, this is the Reigns of Castamere. This is the red wedding on a magic card. And going back to what the card does, a board wipe with the Monarch is huge. Oof. I mean, you can very easily have a 5 toughness commander that survives this, or some sort of giant butt idiot that is on your side of the board to protect you. But most of the time, even if you just clear the board, even if there's nothing left in play,
you get to be the Monarch.
You still get to be the Monarch, and your opponent will need a haste creature.
You want to take it away? That's right. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. All right, so let's move on here to number 4. Mine is higher on someone else's list, and that's good because it's great. Ruben, what's number 4?
We keep alternating our tires. I like it a lot because I have a number 4.
Excellent.
I'm looking at this card, and I don't see a number 4 on it, so I've sort of ruined my theming. But there's a bunch of weird numbers on this card, and it also tells the story of a very famous character that has had a card before, and has, seen a little bit of play as a commander in the past, and was sort of like the central crux story beat in one of my favorite planes of all time. And I'm excited to see that the sapling has grown up into Kolfinor, the Last You.
Yes.
3 colorless white, black, green gets you a 3/7 legendary creature Treefolk Shaman with vigilance and reach. When Kolfinor the Last You or another creature you control dies, return up to 1 other target creature with lesser toughness from your graveyard to your hand. So sort of like a trap scrawler, scrap trawler, not trap scrawler. Scrap trawler. There's also a new cleric from the new set that does something like this with clerics, but this one interacts interestingly with toughness, because you can have a bunch of different numbers on different cards. They can cost a lot and have low toughnesses. They can have high toughnesses and low costs. Like, you can, go crazy with your, from your Nethroys, your anything that has weird interactions that are different numbers. Kolfinor is going to let you do some weird stuff.
Yeah, Kolfinor began life in Lorwyn in Kolfinor's Urn and Kolfinor's Plans.
Yeah. Yep.
Later to the sapling of Kolfinor in Morningtide. And then all the way in 2020 comes the Last You.
Last You.
Card's sweet.
Love it.
All right. Aeron, what's number 4?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit on my number 4. I'm going to take a page from the Ruben playbook. My number 4 is a cycle. And I love them all so much. I couldn't choose. I plan on using at least 3 of them, but I wouldn't need a lot of convincing to use the other 2. And I have heard some people in Legacy specifically say that a couple of these are like as good as Planeswalkers and could very well be like win conditions in Legacy, which is terrifying. My number 4 is the Court cycle. So Court of Ambition, Court of Bounty. the Court of Cunning, Court of Grace, and Court of Ire. So these are monocolored enchantments in each color of the color pie. The black one, for example, is Court of Ambition. All of them say when they enter the battlefield, you become the monarch. And then they give you something at the beginning of your upkeep anyways. So at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So you get something even if you lose the crown, but if you have the crown, these effects get juiced up really, really quickly. Court of Ire, for example, goes from dealing 2 damage to any target to dealing 7 damage to that player or that permanent instead. Court of Grace, you go from a 1/1 white spirit creature to a 4/4 white angel. And so people are talking about Court of Cunning and Court of Grace in those sort of blue-white Azorius control decks, where it'll be should be easy for you to keep the monarch, and you can either make angels or you can deck them by milling them with Court of Cunning. And so I cannot wait to use these. And again, this just fundamentally changed how I'm going to build my Marchesa deck.
Yeah, the Court of Bounty was my number 7. Court of Bounty, and specifically, was 2 green, 2 generic mana for a rare enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield, and if you're the monarch, instead you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield, which is ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, just free put stuff on the battlefield because you wanna. High five.
Yeah, the court cycle is really interesting for Legacy in particular because the Monarch does shine in Legacy. There's less combat, tends to be less combat, and there certainly is fewer creatures. Typically, you're going to have like a Delver of Secrets, right? Or a Gristlebrand that got put in. You're not having armies of creature. We're not blocking a ton in Legacy. And so the Monarch is very difficult to get rid of once it's in play, and giving that to decks that don't necessarily have card advantage is huge.
Yeah, I mean, even something like Court of Grace, like once you get 2 angels, it starts to run out of control. Like, you're just going to win the game before they can stop it. So yeah, really sweet. Let's move on here to number 3. As my number 4 was higher, I do have a number 3. This was, now look, my number 2 and my number 1, like, are my number 2 and number 1 for a lot of really cool, fun reasons. This was kind of my default number 1 because I love this design. I am just head over heels with the cleverness that is bottled up into Wheel of Misfortune. It is absolutely fantastic.
I'm still not sure what this card does. I read it so many times.
All right, let's see if we can figure it out together. All right, gang, here we go.
Okay.
So it's a red and 2 generic mana for a rare sorcery. All right, we're in on that one. First thing we do, each player chooses a number of 0 or greater. All right, so let's do that. Me and you. Just choose one, whatever. A number's in your head. Then all players reveal those numbers simultaneously and determine the highest and lowest numbers revealed this way. My number was 3.
I wrote 7.
And his was 10.
Okay.
All right, so the lowest number. All right, so the highest number was 10, right? So Wheel of Misfortune deals damage equal to the highest number, that would be the 10, to each player who chose that number. Well, wait a minute. To each number who chose that number. So Ruben takes 10. Each player who didn't choose the lowest number, that would be you, Aeron, because I chose the lowest. You chose the one in the middle. Each player who didn't choose the lowest number discards their hand and draws 7 cards.
Ruben didn't choose the lowest number either.
Nope. That means only you would get to discard your hand. Your mic's on mute, by the way.
Sorry. So I take 10.
Yes.
And then Aeron and I discard our hands and draw 7 cards.
Yes, because each player who didn't choose the lowest number. So Ruben takes it for the team. You guys both get a Wheel of Fortune. I get the misfortune because I chose the lowest number.
Wow, I mean, that is
this is going to get wild. This is going to be like 20s.
Yes.
People are going to bid crazy numbers on this because Wheel is tough.
Yeah, Wheel is nuts. And the whole thing is
hilarious.
Like, it's a lot of text. I understand it's a lot to sort of grok, but when you recognize the politics and like the gameplay and what life are you at and what number do you want to be in the middle, but you don't want to be the lowest and all this stuff.
What crazy madman came up with this card?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3 is the last higher. It's on somebody else's list.
Fair enough. Aeron, what's number 3?
My number 3 is another one of those cards, sort of like the Wheel, where you're reading it and you're like, what does this do? And then when you realize what it does, you still can't believe that the crazy that they did it, that the bastards did it. There's been jokes about this being tested in Vintage with Oath of Truths. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's still fun to think about. Cards currently going for between $8 and $12 right now, so there is some potential here. My number 3 is Sphinx of the Second Sun. So Sphinx is 6 colorless and 2 blue. Kind of like Evan said, once you get to a certain threshold, they were just like, who cares, print
Yeah,
it.
just go nuts.
6/6 flying Sphinx. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you get an additional beginning phase after this phase. Why?
Which includes untap, upkeep, and draw. Which is most of not like the Sword of Feast and Famine just did the untap part and won a Pro Tour.
And
this
just-
one gives you all of it. Just immediately, by the way.
This is a wild effect to print on any Magic card, but especially on a creature, because you're going to be able to do some very weird things with creatures and this card.
You know, this was my number 4, by the way, and it's like pour one out for the poor Magic Online programmer who had to figure out how to code this thing in that client. Oh my God.
Yeah.
If it gets there at all.
So this is going to run, what are some blue commanders that have upkeep triggers? Send Triplets comes to mind.
Sure.
So that's a good one. There's a bunch of weird, like Scarab God probably. It's tough for me to think of other ones. But
right.
anyway,
I'm thinking of
Paradox Haze has been
Nekusar's
used
a thing.
Nekusar's a great one.
Nekusar's pretty dope.
Nekusar. Sure, and not to mention that you just get another draw step, so you can do all of the cool, crazy things that you would do with any draw step.
Right.
If you want to, if 7 cards isn't enough, you can get Jin Gataxias. How's that sound? There's a bunch of weird things that go on when you get another untap, another upkeep, and another draw.
Yeah, it's just it does so much. It's 8 mana. We're going completely bananas.
Sure, why not?
And just hang on for the ride, and that's why
I also like his
it
widow
so much.
face. Look at his widow face.
He's got it. It's a tiny
widow
It's
face.
an itty bitty face with a big,
That's probably a
fin.
grown ass.
You know it is.
Yeah,
it's just a weird
grandson,
perspective.
man.
That's a grown ass Sphinx. But
You know
his
what this
face
is? You know what
like
this is?
this
You know how
big.
we tend to treat our old people as children,
Yeah.
where you're like, this is Pawpaw.
Yeah.
Pawpaw's like 7,000 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Pawpaw, the Sphinx.
Meemaw and Peepaw down at the home.
There was an interesting video recently that said, like, here's lore that you would only know if you read the D&D supplements. And one of the D&D supplements was for Amonkhet.
Okay.
Now, Nicol Bolas, he basically turned everyone on that plane for him, to worship him, to see him as the ultimate god. Even the gods themselves, right?
Right.
Except the Sphinxes. The Sphinxes, he did not get to worship him and never worshipped him. Because here's what he did. He couldn't convince them essentially that he was the ultimate god or whatever. So he made them silent. Amonkhet Sphinxes do not talk.
Oh,
They
that's
cannot
cool.
tell everybody, right, that this is a false god and this guy's leading you astray. He just shut them up. And I was like, that's so cool.
Smart.
That's just neat. Thought that was fun.
Yeah, man. If you can't fix the problem, just put a Band-Aid over it. I like that.
just plug the hole.
Thinking outside the box, Nicol Bolas. Good on you.
All right, moving to number 2. Aaron, what's number 2?
My number 2 is a card that has generated a lot of buzz since it was first previewed, and is one of the few cards that I've heard be talked about for eternal play, that is very likely to see play in either Legacy or Vintage, and has also promoted or provoked discussion about what kind of person would play this in Commander, because it has the potential to be abused or to turn a game around in a very unpleasant way. But I am very excited to see what this card can do. My number 2 is Opposition Agent. So Opposition Agent is 2 colorless and a black. She's a human rogue with 3 power, 2 toughness, and flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. Hey, Doomsday. Doomsday is a tier 1 deck in Vintage and has done very well in Legacy as well. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card that they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. This card's going for between $30 and $45 right now. Yeah. And this could absolutely see eternal play. I mean, you look at so many of these, these Commander itself, it relies on its tutors, whether it be Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Diabolic Tutor, same with the Eternal formats, Mystical Tutor, and this could really tinker
Yeah.
Is it enough to stop a deck like
crazy.
Doomsday? No, but is it a great plan? Is it something to supplement your plan? Absolutely, and I cannot wait until someone gets got with this card.
I mean, this is the perfect card to make, like, Doomsday. Yeah, it's tier 1 probably, but it might not be tier 1 anymore when a card like this exists.
Yeah.
Well, this is Notion Thief for the new age. We're gonna get some good YouTube moments out of this.
Goodness.
Say
And
hi
also,
to
but it also
say
makes
hi to
people.
Twitter.
It also opens up the floodgates of, like, you don't want to be the jerk and be like, Fabled Passage and Commander. Like, don't do that. You don't want to do that. But yeah, you definitely want to, make sure that you're using this card correctly and you're not, ruining games.
Use this responsibly.
Yeah, I've seen some people on Twitter come up with some really dumb combos that are like, that just seems really unfun. Like, I wouldn't do that.
Like, don't have, Path to Exile seems a bit excessive. But Scheming Symmetry, that's cool, right?
That's
like, that's a fine one.
Sure.
I think that Malarin of the Morn Song is probably through the roof because of Opposition Agent.
Yeah, it kind of blew up.
By the way, this is my number 5.
Okay.
So we're finally getting to my hires. Yeah, Opposition Agent. So it confuses me because as we've been talking, I was like, oh man, all these cards seem so cool and fun, even if they're cast against me, except for Opposition Agent. Doesn't seem very fun to have cast against me. Seems very good, though.
It seems very punishing in a way that is unique and we've never really seen before. Yeah. We've seen them not be able to search libraries.
Imagine if I spend my 9 mana for Reshape the Earth.
Right, and
my opponent says, I have a response.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you will search for, oopsie 0. Oh, okay, here's your deck back, thank you.
Or you'll search for 10 and I'll just have them over here.
Yeah, sure, why not? Oh, yeah, because you get to get anything you exile. Oh, my God, this card is absurd. Okay. Ruben, what's number 2?
My number 2 is a card that is a character that I have loved and I love and I'm excited is now his own card because previously only body parts of his were Magic cards. And if you get both of his thumbs in play as well as him, I think you should just win the game at that point from a flavor perspective. Krark the Thumbless is a colorless and a red for a legendary creature, Goblin Wizard. He's a 2/2. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, return that spell to its owner's hand. If you win the flip, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So, there's a lot of weird stuff that you can do with this. The rituals come to mind. I think that Desperate Ritual, Pyretic Ritual with this card seems very exciting. Certainly, anything that it wants you to flip coins, you get to flip more coins, so your chance encounters become powered up more efficiently once you have Krark's Thumb and you're starting to flip more coins. There's a bunch of other spells that copy spells already. Right, I mean, so you can play Fork and then fork your fork.
Krark's Thumb is a $14 Magic card right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure.
This card
How much is Krark's other thumb?
Krark's other thumb. This would be the
30 cents
from Unsanctioned.
That's the one that lets you re-roll dice.
Right, it's 11 cents. And it's also silver bordered. And Krark the Thumbless is $2 or $3 as of right now. It's affordable, but the other thumb, the thumb rather, it's just one of those cards that it's a legendary artifact from Mirrodin. They put it on the list, thank God, but that's not a huge amount being recirculated here.
Yeah.
Right.
If you really want to take it to the limit, you gotta get that thumb.
Another card or another effect that comes to mind is the rummaging spells. Things like Tormenting Voice, Cathartic Reunion have a cost. So if you win the flip on Cathartic Reunion, you discard 2 cards and draw 6.
Which is pretty ridiculous. And the flavor text, y'all. Double or nothing.
Double or nothing.
I just loved it. All right. Moving on, y'all, to my number 2. My number 2 is also a character. And this card was so dope. It's not like lighting the world on fire. It's not worth a ton of money. It's one of those cards that just makes me happy. This card that I'm just so excited it exists. I'm so excited that Wizards still references these things. That Wizards can take this little tiny thing that happened in Legends that everyone just kind of got a weird kick out of. It never went anywhere, but everyone knows what kobolds or kobolds, whatever. Kobolds were in Legends. And the kobold characters and the kobold creatures, and they were all just garbage. But it was fun, right? And so when you have Rawgrak son of Raga come in here. It's just fun Magic. This is why I love Magic. It's for stuff like this. It's a 0 cost, but it is a red card. Legendary Cobalt Warrior is a 0/1 with first strike, menace, trample, and partner.
I mean, it's great. It's a
So
first
weird.
of all, 0 mana.
0 mana commander.
Haste. Not haste.
No,
Sorry.
first strike.
0 mana evasive.
Yes.
Creature. This is another thing to put a commander's plate on, for example. This thing
for it.
gets very scary very fast. Also, Roga, I don't know if you know this, but Roga of Care Keep is a Magic card.
Yeah.
It was printed in Legends. It's a 6 mana 5/5 because it's a for some
Legends.
reason.
Yeah.
Because LOL Legends. But yeah,
Lol.
kobolds have long in fantasy settings been sort of the go-to, even weaker than goblins. Like they're like the rats of the fantasy world. You know, they serve dragons as underlings, and they're just like minions that are kind of garbage. And they went with that flavor in Legends. And this is the first kobold we've had since Legends? ? We've had
We've had the Care Keep, right?
which made kobolds of Care Keep. We've had the Scourge of Care Ridges, which made kobolds of Care Keep.
This is the first, no joke, 0 cost kobold since Legends.
Wow.
And
I love it.
Roga is part of the reserve list, so we're not going to see that anymore. And that was your,
Lol.
kobolds of Care Keep Lord. That was how you pumped all your 0/1s or whatever.
Yep.
And like back in the day, I built that deck. Like it was, it didn't cost any money because no one wanted the stupid cards to begin with, but you could throw them together and have a good time.
It also didn't cost any mana. Hey.
This guy, why he's on the podcast, ladies and
Finger
gentlemen.
bang.
Gotcha.
Boggles
All
the
right.
mind.
Moving here to number 1. Aaron, what's number 1?
My number 1 has to be the most talked about card, the most controversial card that is coming out of this set. Its price has fallen a little bit, but it's still going anywhere from $80 all the way up to $183, depending on where you go. This is either going to change the game or it's going to be a complete dud. My number 1 is Jeweled Lotus. So Jeweled Lotus is 0 mana to cast. It's an artifact. I can't even believe what it does. That's why I'm stuttering. And you tap it and you sacrifice Jeweled Lotus. You add 3 mana of any one color and you spend this mana only to cast your commander. So for those of you who've never had the pleasure of cracking a Black Lotus before, you can now do that in Commander. They have a Black Lotus specifically for Commander. And so I'll never forget where I was the night that this was previewed. I was making dinner and Twitter just exploded. And you had people that were like, this is the worst idea ever. You had people like my boyfriend that were like, I finally get to crack a Lotus. This is really cool. You had people that were predicting, some commanders are not meant to be ramped out on turn 1. This is a really, really bad idea. And so I'm really interested to see if this is going to last. I am one of those people who feels like Commander is in a really interesting spot right now in terms of the growth of the format, the way that people are building their decks, the way that people feel the need to build their decks. And so, I do wonder if this is going to be a bit of a turning point because I don't think everybody needs this card. And I don't think, I just think it's an interesting discussion point and we'll just have to see what happens. Card's beautiful too, by the way, but holy cow, they did it.
They did.
They made the Lotus for commanders. People, like, no joke. Like, people are literally pre-ordering this for like $120 something dollars. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
It's crazy to me. Like, this is like one of the highest variance cards I've literally ever seen. It only goes in commander decks, and you only see it however low a percentage of time. And when you see it on those percentage of times, does it even matter? Like, that in and of itself, it's a crazy, interesting question. And the fact that it's got the word Lotus on it, it makes 3 mana, like, people are going to perk up no matter what happens at that point. And yeah, that's where we're at.
It's they did a very good job, I think, with this card. Because, first of all, it's like, if you, from an advertising perspective, it's like you can crack a 0 mana Lotus that makes 3 mana in a booster pack.
Yeah,
we did it. Everybody go home. We did it.
Yep.
We figured it out. But you did it in such a way that the broken things you can do with a Lotus in regular formats you can't really do with this. Like you can't, go
Can't
crazy.
trigger
with
storm off or
Underworld
nothing.
Breach.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no weird stuff like that. What you can do is play like a turn 1 Jeska Thrice Reborn, right? Like we're not doing crazy, insane. I don't think. I mean, there are certainly. Look, this is going to go into my Atali deck, right? And sometimes I'm going to get to attack with a turn 3 Atali. So that's going to change the variance a little bit. There's the 6 mana Teferi that untaps 4 islands, and that's going to be crazy. But I don't think that it is markedly better than Sol Ring. I don't think it's better than Sol Ring at all. And in the decks in which it's good, your Skitherixes maybe, it's good. But you're still open to the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's still, I would probably rather have Sol Ring in my opening hand than this every time. I mean, is it just
This
me?
is card disadvantage.
Yeah, this is kind of wrecking yourself and hoping that one casting of your commander gets there. So
And sometimes it will. And more power to you. Because when you cast a Lotus, you should win. You should feel like you should win when you cast a Lotus.
you should feel like you're doing something overpowered. Like, like this is important.
This was my
and
number 3,
huge.
by the way.
Nice. Well, there you go. This was my number 6. So definitely want to be on the top 10 list.
Yeah.
Ruben, what's number 1?
I think everybody knows at this point what my number one's what my number 1 is going to be.
Yeah.
Listen, when this card was spoiled, I got tagged a lot
A little bit.
because it's a turtle. And
Turtle.
it's very
Oh.
slow.
Uh-huh.
Life is not a race.
Uh-huh.
Archelaus,
Mm.
Lagoon Mystic,
Yes.
is my number.
So random.
God.
Archelaus Lagoon Mystic is a colorless, a black, a green, and a blue for a legendary creature Turtle Shaman. It's a 2/4. As long as Archelaus Lagoon Mystic is tapped, other permanents enter the battlefield tapped. As long as Archelaus is untapped, other permanents enter the battlefield untapped. So there's a bunch of weird interactions that you get to do with this. First of all, this is the best vehicles commander that's ever been printed. So you get your fleet wheel cruisers, you get your smugglers copters, and you go to town. Mm-hmm. You also are using Springleaf Drum, right? There's lots of great things to be able to do with that. And so that sort of builds around itself. You can use the inspired creatures, for example, like King Makar from Theros block. Lots of cool things you can do. And oh, by the way, on your turn, when you untap, you can then play Reshape the Earth and get all your lands untapped. Or you can attack with your, what's the sword of go get a basic land and put it into play.
Sure.
And your bounce lands come into play untapped. And your Nev's Disc comes into play untapped. And all your things are peachy and keen. I just think that I think it's neat.
It's incredibly neat. I mean, you have opposition, for example. Staff of Domination is good with
I'm
this.
getting asked to leave my playgroup if I play an opposition in this card, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds great.
It's
like
pretty
this
dirty.
is definitely a prison commander. Like
Yes.
this is a like you play like Kismet and hope your opponents don't kill you.
I don't think you bring a lot of
Stasis
joy when you say, "Hey, I'm
No.
bringing the turtle deck," and they're like, "Really? Is that what you're
I don't
doing?"
think I would build the spikiest version of this deck, although Spike Turtle.
I mean, yeah, because permanents into the battlefield tapped. Here comes the winter orb. Let's do this. Come on.
Yeah.
Why not?
Jeez.
Well, look, my number 1, and by process of elimination, Ruben's number 9, is a card that it speaks to me. It speaks like if I could translate
Evan
some of
always
my
liked the fatties.
yes,
Is
when
what-
you always loved fatties. That was at the end of my shows for like 10 years, y'all, and you
I've
boil
never
it
seen
down.
a fatty or fatty.
This is the fattiest fatty that ever fatted the fat. And if you're going to get a giant dumb idiot that you want to just windmill slam and have an experience, to let Magic do things. I play Magic to win and to feel things. And by God, when you slam down Apex Devastator, you better be doing both. All right? Apex Devastator is 2 green, 8 generic mana for a 10/10 Mythic Chimera Hydra. Boy's got 4 words on it. It don't need all those words, but it's got 4. It's got a bunch after it, but whatever. It's got Cascade, Cascade. It can keep your dishes clean, and it can also provide you with 4 awesome spells for free. Apex Devastator is my number one, not close.
I have a special place in my heart for Cascade. Living In was my first modern deck, and so I was one of those people that really liked the mechanic. I was really sad to see that, a lot of Magic designers or Magic staff, WotC staff, didn't really feel the same. It was always this, I'll never forget, I love telling the story of how I was playing in a celebrity bounty event at Gen Con, and each round of the event had like a plane chase theme to it, and one of the rounds was the Cascade round, and everybody in attendance just groaned, and they were like, ugh. Yeah. And I was always hoping that they would bring this mechanic back somehow, and I think this was the perfect set for it. I think the cards they put it on, it makes sense, and I'm just really, really happy to see it.
But for those who don't know, Cascade says whenever you cast this spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost, but the exile cards on the bottom of your library in a random order, and multiple instances of Cascade trigger each separately. So, that's 4 times you're going to get to spin that wheel and play anything less than 10 mana.
I love it.
It's just peak Commander, like the randomness of it, the over-the-topness of it. Yeah,
my cheeks hurt because I'm smiling so much. Just thinking about this card. It's what I want to. It's what 7-year-old Ruben would want to be doing with his life.
Yeah, this is the crazy stuff that, when I was 15 and I first learned how to play Magic, this would be the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It would be incredible.
And not for nothing, but people have, Maelstrom Wanderer decks, Yidris decks. There are decks built around this effect. Why not have a 10 mana one at the way top and then Cascade 4 times?
Well, then if you had a Cascade spell off the Cascades,
sure,
those
let's hit a
cascade
Blood Red Elf too. Exactly.
Woo! Spin that wheel, and the extended art having just in the center just the 4 words Cascade 4 times. It's just, and that foil is almost $100. So, good luck with that one.
Jesus.
I love that.
All right. That was our top 10 Commander Legends cards. You'll see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me. And if you can't get enough Commander Legends, I got to plug myself here. My boyfriend and I are going to be doing an unboxing stream that is not a metaphor this Saturday night. So depending on when you watch this, it may have already happened, but be sure to watch the VOD on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/original_. Should be a really good time.
Absolutely.
Plugging yourself about your unboxing.
Somebody has to, am I right?
Hey-o.
Pandemic's getting to you.
Thank you, Ruben.
No problem. What were you talking about?
We have no idea.
I blacked out and woke up in the outro.
You gotta plug your box, Ruben.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God.
On this episode of Magic Mics.
Check that Patreon show if you want to see what's going on with there. Okay, so I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell, Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at MagicMics, on Twitter at MagicMicsCast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.